If you're a business where the leaders aren't open to feedback or can't take feedback, people stop giving it. And then when they start getting to the point where they're not happy, so they disengage and eventually they leave. If I hadn't have been in office and surrounded by people that I could learn from, by just experiencing an office culture, I wouldn't be where I am today. One thing I say to my children all the time is, it doesn't matter if not everybody likes you because you don't like everybody. And we can't be liked by everyone and we don't like everyone. And that's okay, as long as we're being kind.
One of my favourite things that you say, people on your P&L is your biggest expense, but probably the thing that gets the least attention.
Your workers are essentially subscribing to your workplace, and they will continue subscribing for the amount of time where they feel like they're getting something in return for their subscription. The moment that they feel that that's not being delivered, they're going to unsubscribe and they're going to subscribe somewhere else.
Hi and welcome back to another episode of I Shouldn't Say This But. My name is Katy Leeson and we are here in the beautiful Mollies in Manchester, and I want to thank them and our sponsors, We Are The Allies, without which we wouldn't be able to do this episode. My guest today is Kelly Tucker, founder of HR Star, an absolute expert when it comes to people, HR and building cultures. You're going to get so much out of this episode. If you're growing, hiring, and trying to retain your talent, this is the episode for you. Kelly, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. But before we do that, we've known each other for about a year now, just over 12 months. And we've actually been working together, haven't we, as a coachee. And you approached me based on one of our mutual connections who introduced us. We've been working on you and taking you out of working in the business and making you work on the business with the great goals that you've got. And in that time, I have learned so much from you about the HR world, about what everyone should be doing. So this is why I think this conversation is going to be really useful. Before we get into that, will you tell me and the listeners and watchers a little bit more about you and your journey?
Yes, thank you, Katy. So I own and run a HR consultancy called HR Star. We work with a whole host of businesses to provide HR support in the form of really proactive people partnering to ensure that culture, employee life cycle is as good as it can be, because I believe that if you take a proactive approach to managing your people, you will attract and retain the best people and your business will thrive because of it. HR Start is 11 years old. Prior to that, I'd worked in-house in HR in a couple of roles. I never set out to have a career in HR. I kind of fell into it. I had worked in various positions, sort of administrator, personal assistant positions in corporate businesses. Always knew I loved the idea of working in a corporate world, being organised in an office. And then I was made redundant from a role, wasn't working, living with my parents, and my dad was like, Kelly, you need to go and get a job, stop just dossing around here all day. So I was like, okay, Dad. So I signed on to a recruitment agency, and they had a 6-month role for a local charity, and it was to set up a HR department. It was called Personnel back in the day. That's how old I am. And the role was to go in and go through the physical personnel file. So everybody in the organisation had a physical file with a hard copy contract, employee details form, etc. So I was there to make sure that everyone had a fully up-to-date copy of contracts, etc. I went there for 6 months and ended up staying for 8 years. And in that time, I was responsible for the recruitment function. Again, that was all very sort of manual, sending out application forms, setting up interviews, sending like letter invites, etc. And then slowly worked my way up until I was the HR manager after 8 years. Left there to have my first child. And whilst I was on maternity leave, my maternity cover took my job, which was horrendous. Managed to find another HR manager role part-time, but back then it was really hard to find part-time senior roles. So the role that I took was quite a trek in terms of a commute. It wouldn't have been my ideal role, but it was a part-time HR manager role, and so I took it with the plan that I was going to stay there for 6 to 12 months. Ended up staying there for 7 to 8 years.
Common theme.
Yes, and again, once I was there, worked my way up, and when I left, I was the head of HR in a strategic role on paper, but not in practice. So I still very much felt that as a HR function, I was wheeled out to hire and fire rather than actually look at how we're getting the best from our people, which was why then I started HR Star, because I wanted to do HR differently. So yeah, been doing HR Star for 11 years. And when I reached out to you, like you say, just over a year ago, I think it's because I do a lot of founder to founder support and coaching for founders that I work with. And it got to the point where I was like, I need to talk to somebody about my business and helping me get out of that day to day. I think so many founders I talk to want to get out of the being in the business and work more on the business. And I realized, actually, I need someone to help me with that. And like you say, we were introed from a mutual friend, and the rest is history. But it's been really helpful having that person to really talk to about what I want to achieve for HR Star, and being not necessarily accountable, but you will obviously make sure that I'm delivering on those things, and I can talk to you about challenges. And it's been something that's been really helpful and encouraged me to do more of that in my business with my founders as well.
And one of my favourite things that you say is that people on your P&L is your biggest expense, but probably the thing that gets the least attention. Where do you notice that? Like, how does that show up? What makes you talk about it in that way?
Yeah, so I say that a lot, as you know. So yeah, if you look, I'm a founder, I've got a team, so I'm running a business. So when I look at my overheads, the payroll is a huge line on my P&L, and for most businesses, it probably is their biggest line. So for me, it's like, why wouldn't you then invest in your people to get the most ROI from them?
It's so true, but you just don't think of it.
No. Because we all know, as business owners, working in a senior leadership position, or just being in a workplace, when you have to continually replace people, not only is it really expensive, it's so disruptive. Because every time somebody leaves, you have spent some time training that person, getting them up to speed on how it works in your organisation. They're walking out the door with that. So even if you hire somebody who is highly skilled and experienced and who can hit the ground running, they still will need time to understand the culture, the ways of working in that organisation. You add on to that the time it takes to go out and find really good people if you're using recruiters, the fees. Why would you spend all your time and money doing that and not on looking after the people that you've got?
It's so true. It's so true. And I think we were talking before we started recording, staff turnover in the UK is about 35%, which seems high to me.
It is high. It is high. And I think that's I think because of many things. We talk a lot about the effect of COVID. That was 6 years ago now. Crazy.
Doesn't feel like that, does it?
No. And that, I think, was a moment in time that changed the wants and needs of people in the workplace. I remember when they obviously announced everybody had to work from home. And initially, everybody loved that. Oh, we can work from home. We don't have to worry about the commute. We're saving money and time on that. We can be more present in the home. We can make sure we're there for deliveries. We can put the washing on, etc., etc. Great, brilliant. And I think because prior to COVID, everybody was working, really long hours. It was like it was a badge of honor, like that you worked, more than the 9 to 5. And if you worked flat out, you were going to get promoted. And only the people who did ridiculous hours were doing really well in business. So I think everyone just breathed a sigh of relief. It's like, the pressure's off a bit. We don't have to be out the house and like on this rat race. And everyone was like, the office is dead. We'll never go back to that. The work-life balance thing has been addressed. And I remember at the time saying, no, it won't, because we're doing this because we have to. The moment we can go back to a new normal or any type of the way it was before, things will start shifting again. And it did, because we were told that nobody would return to the office. But what we're seeing now, more and more people wanting their people back in the office. And I think some of that is because we want people to do really well at work. Obviously, as a business owner, I want my team to do really well. I want them to learn. I want them to develop. And I don't think you can replace some of the key things that you learn in a workplace by continually working at home. And I know this debate has been going on for the last 6 years. I know Emma Gree's just been absolutely ridiculed for her views on it. But I think there are elements of what she says that I agree with. If I hadn't have been in office and surrounded by people that I could learn from, by just experiencing an office culture, by looking at senior people and how they behaved, by overhearing conversations, by being able to have in the moment feedback, I wouldn't be where I am today. I genuinely believe that. My team work hybrid, and when we're in the office, so much collaboration gets done. I can just give the feedback. They can ask me questions in the moment, which probably you wouldn't do if you had to then pick up the phone or send a message over Slack or Teams, etc. But there is an element that the work from home really helps me out, and I know it helps my team out. When I want to do some focused work, I need to be in a place where I can focus and I'm not distracted. I have 3 children. Sometimes I do need to be able to just be at home so I'm present and I'm there for them when they come home. My washing would be an absolute mountain of horrendousness if I didn't get to, put some washing on during the day, etc. But I think if you're really ambitious and you really want to do well in the world of business, you have to be in the room.
Yeah.
And not necessarily all the time, but I think you have to be in the room more than being at home.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It makes me really nervous for the next generation because I know my career has been built on listening and being around and being curious, and that curiosity you can't get out of being sat at your laptop at home. You just can't get that. And it makes me incredibly nervous about the next generation. And also network. Like, both of us wouldn't have the career we've had without the network. And you can only do that if you build it in real time and in real relationships. It's very difficult to do that over working from home.
Oh my gosh.
Zoom.
Yeah, it really is. I think now, like, where clients for HR Star come from, or where I get to meet people do amazing things, obviously work with you, is because, like you say, of the network that I've built. And that's from being in rooms, by being at networking events or being at in-person conferences, training, by meeting people in the workplace who know people, who recommend people. And so, and also my confidence. I wouldn't have the confidence to probably sit here and talk to you today, to run, I host CEO dinners, like I do, talking events, I speak on panels. I would never have had the confidence to do that if I hadn't have spent time around people, if I had just learned everything I know today from sitting at home on a laptop. No way.
Yeah, it's so true. Is that a common thing you're seeing with your clients at HR Star? Is like that, not knowing how to navigate hybrid working, return to the office? What are the conversations you're having around that? What are your suggestions to people struggling with that? Because you want them to be in the office, but they don't necessarily want to be in the office.
Yeah. So it has been a conversation, and I imagine it will continue to be a conversation. I say to all my clients, you have to really think about, how do you want to run your business? What is the culture that you want? Because you'll have a culture whether you define it or not. So it's better to define it. Think about the values that really you want to live and work by, and then build everything around that. If you're the founder, this is your business. You can build the business that you want. So set out those expectations. I know at HR Star, we will never be fully remote because we are a people-focused business. We need to spend time together to do collaborative work. Yeah. But what I'm really clear about is I wouldn't make them all just come into the office for the sake of it. So we are very clear that we have our 3 days that are office days. But if you need to be on site with a client, of course, then you're not in the office. Or if you've got a big deadline and a project you need to work on and you need to work from home one of those days, great, fine. We're all adults. Let's, treat our people like that. But also, if you are coming into the office, make sure you're utilising that time for things that are collaborative, team meetings, team building, events, etc. And then when you're working from home, be clear on how that works and what that's going to look like. And I think more than ever, we have to be really clear on communication. It's something that I have talked about forever in HR. For me, so many HR nightmares could have been avoided by just talking to people or being clearer with your expectations or having those difficult conversations sooner. So think about, okay, if I'm a business owner, how do I want my business to run? Do I want to be hybrid? Okay, what does that look like? How many days do I think they need to be in the office? What they're going to do when they're in the office? How do I want them to communicate when they're working from home? How do I want them to update me on what they're doing when they're working from home? And then be really open and honest about that. Set those expectations and then manage against those expectations. And if people are falling short, have a conversation with them and find out, hey, Katy, why are you not performing, in line with what we discussed and agreed? Is it because you don't have the time, the support, the training that you need? Or is it that you're just feeling a bit disengaged? Okay, well, let's talk about that. What is it that you need?
And is that what I struggled with difficult conversations? When I was a social trainer, when I reflect back, I was trying so hard to be liked that it's the difference, isn't it, between being nice and being kind? And I think I was trying so hard to be nice that I wasn't being kind and I wasn't holding people accountable. And if I would go back, that's what I'd change. Is that a common thing or is that just me being...
No, that is so common. And I see it all the time, especially in a small business. And then I think you were obviously promoted into this big role. You're really young when you became, in charge at Social Chain. Amazing. And I bet you felt a bit imposter syndrome. I bet you felt, you're like, oh my God, me? Like I'm responsible for all these people. And it's a big deal, right? Being responsible. I feel it even with a team of 10. Walk into a room and they're all looking at me like for leadership, for the answers. It's like, oh God, this is a lot. But for me, it's about respect. Being respected is more important than being liked. And I think if you're respected, then the like will probably come. But one thing I say to my children all the time is, it doesn't matter if not everybody likes you because you don't like everybody. Yes. And we can't be liked by everyone and we don't like everyone. And that's okay as long as we're being kind. So that's what I tell my children. That's what I say to my founders. So I do a lot of founder-to-founder sessions with my clients, which is a safe space for them to sort of offload and talk about any challenges they're having. 9 out of 10 is about people, so to talk to me about their people. And I say to them, just be really clear on your expectations and manage against that. And don't think of it as a difficult conversation. Think of it as giving feedback. And feedback is a gift because people can then either take that feedback on board and learn from it, improve, or they might not like your feedback. And then they have to decide whether this is the right place for them or not. But being open and honest about your expectations will solve so many of your people problems. I guarantee that. And like I said, the reframing of, it's not a difficult conversation, it's a constructive conversation. We're giving some feedback.
I was listening to something that said, in order to take in feedback, if it's a positive bit of feedback, you need to hear it 7 times versus the one piece of negative. Yeah. And I think that's why there's such a negative feeling around feedback, because we just take all that we hang on and clutch onto the negative, so it feels like it's you're being criticized. Or so as leaders, I always try and say to people, think about giving good feedback as well as negative. 100%. But you've got to do that 7 times good to the 1 time bad, otherwise it'll never stay in your brain. And that's what creates a culture then of everyone feeling like they're just being constantly.
And I've seen that
attacked.
Yeah, I've seen that with a client we used to work with, and I stopped working with them because they never gave any feedback unless it was the bad stuff, telling people they weren't performing, that they weren't happy with their output, that they weren't happy with what they were delivering to clients. And then I started getting that feedback from the team. They only ever tell us when things are going wrong. They never tell us if anything's good. They never tell us about new clients we're winning, or if we've lost, clients, they'll tell us about that. And you can't just give people that negative stuff. You, like you say, you have to also give them the good stuff. And so I think feedback should be continuous. And it shouldn't just be a moment in time. We should have structures in our workplaces to give feedback, and it should also happen in the moment as well. And do you know what? The more you do it, the easier it becomes. But we also, I think, have to build within our workplace resilience. And I think we have to set that expectation with our people that we will be giving you feedback, and that's okay. We won't be unkind. We won't be negative for the sake of it. But if expectations aren't being met, if performance isn't where it needs to be, we're going to have that chat with you, and you have to be okay with that.
I'd expect it the other way as well. I think when you're having those conversations and you're setting out those expectations on, we are going to be a culture of feedback, as a leader, I want feedback from the team as well.
Yeah.
I don't just want to give it. I also want to receive it, because then that's how you make the positive changes. It's how you make growth. It's how you develop. It's how you as a person develop as well, because a lot of the time people don't like giving feedback to people upwards, do they?
And I think, again, you need to make them feel psychologically safe to be able to do that. You have to let them know it's okay. I've worked with clients where they say, it's okay to give me feedback, but it's not, because the moment someone gives them feedback, then they don't like it and they get defensive, or they come down really hard on that person. Well, that person's not going to give any feedback. And what happens is, if you're a business where the leaders aren't open to feedback or can't take feedback, people stop giving it. And then when they start getting to the point where they're not happy, they don't give the feedback, so they disengage and eventually they leave. And then what happens is they give that feedback at the point of exit, and then everyone's like, oh, why didn't you say? Because they don't feel comfortable enough to say. So I think exit interviews are good. And I'm listening to Emma Gree's book at the moment. And she doesn't do exit interviews because she spends more effort and energy in doing interviews during people's time at her businesses. So I am a great believer in doing regular check-ins, one-to-one surveys, whatever it is you want to call it, or however you want to do it. Ask your people how they're feeling, what's going well, what's challenging them, what do they like, what don't they like. Ask them that all the time, because that will change, and then do something with that. And then you won't be shocked when somebody leaves and they're giving you really like low scores on an exit interview.
I just want to take a quick moment to thank the sponsors of the podcast. We are the Allies, the absolute best in freelance creative recruitment. Now, let's get back to it. You also talked about your founder-to-founder sessions there. What other commonalities? You talked about people being a big thing. What are the common themes coming out of your founder-to-founder sessions? What are you noticing in the HR world?
We're talking a lot in my founder to founder about making sure we're getting the most from our people. It's tough out there, isn't it? We all know that, most people are really struggling financially, budgets are tight. I feel that with everything that's happened externally, it's really putting the business world into a bit of a hold, that no one can really make any decisions or make any moves because they're waiting to see what happens. And then what happens is everyone just stalls and somebody just needs to move and do something. So we have got some clients who are doing really well and they're continuing to hire and they are, just growing, and that's great. And the majority of my clients are scaling, but it is getting tougher. And what I'm seeing is they want to make sure that they're getting the most out of their people. So they're talking to me about that. How am I ensuring that we're getting more from less? And what we're talking a lot about is the change in the structure of the workplace, the people structure. So I talk about how it's gone from being quite a triangular shape with lots of junior staff and then less people in roles. The more senior you sort of go up through the organisation. That's changing, and that's changing. We've done it at HR Star for a number of reasons. Obviously AI, who isn't talking about AI? But I think we all have to embrace AI. It's here. It's something that I use AI. It's really making me more efficient. It's making my team more efficient. And on that point, I think from a people perspective, we need to be thinking about how we're equipping our workforce to use AI, how we're being really clear on what we do and don't want our workforce to be doing when it comes to AI. They are going to need a different skill set when it comes to being able to use AI efficiently in the workplace. So that's something to have on your agenda if you've got people. But I would say, that shape of the workplace is changing into a more of a diamond shape. So less people in junior roles because we can use automation and AI for a lot of those tasks. And then more people in the middle where we need that skill, experience, knowledge to really ensure that we are delivering and we are really productive to ensure that the business is achieving what it can achieve through good people.
With that, though, more time, I feel, needs to be put into training managers.
Yes.
I think a lot of us just get thrown into managerial positions. I always remember thinking when I was starting out in my career, I was like, I want to be a manager. but I didn't know why. I felt like that was just because it was the
because it was seen as a promotion.
Yeah.
I felt the same.
Yeah.
I remember when I was working in my first HR role, and I couldn't wait till they'd let me manage somebody, because you've made it. You're a manager of people. And then they gave me 2 people to manage. One was a dream, and it was like really easy to manage her. The other one was a nightmare. And I was like, oh God, no, I don't want to do this.
It's the hardest thing.
Yeah.
I think it's so hard, but we're not given the training in it.
No, and what I'm seeing is more and more people don't want to do it because they don't want the stress that comes with it. Managing people has definitely got harder because the needs and wants of people in the workplace have changed, because it takes a lot of time to manage well, and I think you have to manage your people well. And because if you get it wrong, the impact of that can be huge for an organisation. I've worked in HR for well over 20 years, and the amount of claims that I'm seeing now from disgruntled employees is more than doubled to what it was when I first started working in HR. And because there's more visibility around it, people talk more about, I feel like I was treated really badly, so I'm going to make a claim and I'm going to go and win thousands and thousands in an employment tribunal. And it's becoming harder and harder to manage people. So understandably, less and less people want to do it.
It's exactly why I went out on my own. My whole thing is I'm going to try and do this for as long as I can, because I don't want to manage anyone ever again. That is my whole driver.
Yeah.
Because I found it so difficult.
It's hard.
You can go in with the best of intentions, but we're also dealing with humans who are very complex, and there's a lot to go at, but you're not given the tools early enough to know how to manage those kind of people, or how to manage your people-pleasing tendencies, or how to get the most out of people. I think it concerns me, especially with AI, what we're doing to our managers, and also new laws. We were talking before about the new law that was coming in. How is that going to impact everything?
Yeah, so a number of new employment laws have come into practice this year. So we're seeing that people can receive statutory sick pay from day one. The rules around being able to bring a claim against your employer are changing. So in January 2027, you would now only need 6 months service to bring a claim, where currently it's 2 years, although you can still bring discrimination claims from day one. And I think that is terrifying business owners because of the potential increase in claims. There is already over, I think, 65,000 open claims with the employment tribunal system, with some hearings being listed now as far as like 2030 in some counties in the UK, because the employment tribunal is absolutely stacked with claims.
Wow.
So if you are an employer, you're probably fearful that you're going to get one of these claims on your desk. So what we're seeing is less people managing properly because they're worried about that. So potentially using things like settlement agreements to exit people without the worry of a claim. Or in some cases, managers not worrying about it, thinking, well, it's going to be years down the line before I potentially be held account to it anyway, and it'll probably settle before I get there. So I think there is a flaw in that system, and I think that's something that needs to be addressed as a priority, because I think what's happening is people then who genuinely do have claims are not getting their day in court to be heard and to be obviously compensated for that. I was talking to an employment solicitor recently, and she said the amount of claims that previously that she has worked on that would have been thrown out and now just going through the system, it's crazy. That's crazy. So I think there's more nervousness around hiring people and getting it wrong, which potentially will see less people actually getting hired. So it's actually going to go against what these new laws were actually brought in for, to get more people in work and keep them in work. I think is actually going to have the opposite effect.
Because you would quite naturally want to go with easier options, more effective things like utilising AI to structure your more junior tasks. Because why would you want to hire? Because it brings so much risk.
Yeah. But then we're also seeing, aren't we, that I think if you're not trained properly on using AI, quite often people are just using AI and assuming it's correct and putting that stuff out there, and it's not always right. And I always say that in HR Start, yes, we can use AI to improve our efficiencies, but nothing leaves the building that hasn't had a human, sort of checkpoint that a human hasn't looked at it or done, had their due diligence with it, quality checked it, etc. Nothing just goes out AI. It has to be used in the right way, like I say, to improve efficiencies, but not to replace.
Yeah. That is a whole topic we could talk about for ages, I think.
We're seeing now clients getting more and more grievances as well, because employees are using AI to write their grievances, and they're literally getting a grievance, like this 5-page grievance on their desk. They're like, oh my God, this is awful. Look at all these potential claims. And AI's written the grievance.
Yeah, because it's so easy.
Yeah.
Plug in a couple of bits
Yeah.
and you've got a letter written for you.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked a bit about the struggles. What are the opportunities then? Because it is getting harder. We've also got AI, which means that the talent pool is changing. What you're looking for in your hires is changing. Retention's hard. What are the opportunities? How do people get it right?
I still think there's loads of opportunities for business owners to have really successful business. When I think about what we did at HR Star, so in 2023, I went out and I won lots of new business. I was like, right, I'd worked on my personal brand. I wanted to scale. I focused on going out there, being in the room and winning loads of business. And I did, and that was great. What I didn't do was make sure I had the team that could deliver the work. The team that I had were great at where HR Star was before. And I say this all the time, the team that gets you to a certain point isn't necessarily the team that's going to get you to that next point. So always be looking at where are we trying to get to as a business? Who are the people that we're going to need to get us there? Or when we get there, what are we going to need? And always be thinking about that, because it might be that those people are already in your workplace, but they are going to need some career path mapped out for them and some training, support and development. And great if we can do that and retain people that way. So when that happened at HR Star and I didn't have the team, the impact of that was then we lost clients because we weren't delivering. Clients weren't happy with the quality. I'd gone out there and promised them the world and then we didn't deliver it. And I will never make that mistake again. It was really costly, but also it was really demotivating having to keep having conversations with unhappy clients. So I made a vow, I was like, I will never do that again. And I talk a lot about this with my founders. We have to make sure we have the right team in place and the right structures and the right people processes before we start ramping up and scaling. I think there's still plenty of business out there. Like I said, loads of my clients are doing really well and growing, but I think you have to align everything to be really successful. So now I'm really, really deliberate at HR Star when I'm looking at potentially signing up new clients. Have I got the right team member? Have we got enough capacity and resource to deliver that? And if we don't, I either pause that on new business, and I put that in place. Or if we do, great, and we move forward with that. But it's something I'm continually looking at. And I think with everything, managing people, like having the right culture, putting the right people processes in place, they're all things that you have to continually work on. It's not a one and done, because people change in your organization. If you grow, you're going to potentially need new skills, new people. That impacts existing people. So, I mean, obviously I'm biased, but that's why I do think you need somebody who's continually working on and looking at that for you. I'm not an expert in finance, so I'm not doing the finances at HR Star. I have an amazing accountant who looks after all my numbers for me. And something, again, Emma Greed has said in her book is that the minute that she got out of her own way and realised that actually she wasn't the expert at everything in her business, and actually if she brought in experts where she wasn't, her business would fly. That's when it happened.
Yeah.
So I love doing my founder to founder because I know I'm helping so many founders when it comes to their people. But like I said, I can't help them with every other element of their business. So get experts in to help you. I think that's where there's a real opportunity, and be really deliberate, like I said earlier, around what you want your business to stand for, how you want it to operate, what you want that people experience to be, and then work on that stuff every day. Because if you do, you will see that come back and it will pay in dividends. I look at HR Star now and it's the best it's ever been in terms of not only financially, like we've just done our best quarter ever, like our revenue has increased by 70-something% in the last year. It's incredible. Thank you. But that's all because of how deliberate I've been around my people, but not just that, their experience at HR Star, the processes that we have in place. Like we have systems for systems. It does feel like that sometimes, but it works. It means that everyone knows what's going on with all the clients. Our clients are really clear about what they can expect. The clients are being delivered to. The team are being supported. The team are being trained. They're not overstretched. Yes, they are busy, but productive busy. And like I said, that is impacting on the numbers. So that's why I can confidently sit here and say, if you do these things as a business owner, it does work. I've done it the way that you shouldn't do it, and I suffered, the consequence of that. And now I am putting a lot into my team and my people processes, and the business is thriving. But it's bloody hard work.
It's never ending.
It's never ending.
Which is why you need people like you to support.
Yes. And people like you to support me.
Well, we've talked a lot about the difference, and you touched on it there, the difference of working on the business, not in the business. Yeah. And if you've not got the right team structure, you're going to get sucked into working in the business, which takes you away from working on the business. And that's the biggest thing I notice when I'm working with people. They're not finding that time because they've not got the right team structures, or they've not put the right things in place. So then you're not going to grow at the speed that you want to. You're not going to hit the goals.
And most founders are visionaries, and they're there and they're really good at having the ideas, and they're really good at pulling stuff together, and they're really good at saying, I want to get over there and we're going to get there, and motivating the people and like taking them all on the journey. But they're not normally that great at then the whole operational part and making sure actually everything's where it needs to be for that to happen. But that's okay. You can't be all of the things to all of the people. So I think getting really clear on what your strengths are and where you add the most value and doing more of that is really important. And then putting the right team around you to ensure the rest of the stuff happens.
One of the other things that I'm noticing with when I'm speaking to businesses is the fear around intergenerational work, mainly around Gen Z.
Yes.
And Gen Z. I went American then, didn't I? But mainly around their expectations and how much they're changing the workforce for good and bad.
Yeah.
What are you noticing in that space?
Definitely noticing the change in expectations of Gen Z coming into the workplace around. So when I started in the workplace, and I'm sure it was very similar for you, being of a similar age, you're younger than me. We can obviously caveat that.
Not much though. we would come into the work at the same
time. I was really, really grateful to have a job. And for me, it was about going to work and doing my job really, really well. And if I did that, I would get noticed. And that's when then you can have a conversation around promotion, pay rise, etc. And I also just had the understanding or the thought when I went into workplace that they would tell me how it was, and that's how it was. And, you work to their rule, to the way that they wanted to run their business. Now we're seeing, and is it just a generational shift? Maybe, but I also think because things are a lot more visible with obviously social media, people see more that goes on behind closed doors in workplaces, or people are more vocal about it. Now we are seeing with this new generation coming into the workplace, they do have different wants and needs. And like you say, it's not necessarily bad. They don't want to necessarily work really long hours and not be paid for it. They want a blend between their home life and their work life. You and I talk a lot, don't we, about blend rather than balance. We don't believe that you can actually balance the two. It's a blend. And sometimes your life will be more working and sometimes it'll be more living. So I think it's then about understanding that and stop trying to fight against it as a business owner. These are the people now coming into the workplace. They have a different expectation. They want to be able to leave on time the majority of the time. They will have outside interests, but that doesn't mean they're not going to be really great workers for you. They just need to be in the right environment. And I think this goes back to what I was saying earlier around being really open and honest about how your business operates so they can opt in or out of that. Because let's be honest, you don't want to hire somebody who's going to fight against you and your processes or not align with your values or be adding to your culture. So be really clear about that up front so that you're only bringing in the right people who are going to align to all of those things. But then again, I think it goes back to this point around managers. What are we doing to ensure that our managers know how to manage this new generation? Because if you've got managers who've managed for years, they haven't necessarily managed this new generation. They don't understand what it's like to manage people with different expectations and different wants and needs at work. So let's support them in that. Let's give them the skills and the tools to be able to manage this new generation.
I want to get rid of the command and control, and it's always been done this way. I think that's one of the things that really holds us back from connecting with the next generation of talent. And I think, yes, every generation has wanted something different from work.
Yes.
But I think with the speed that everything's moving, it's now so much quicker. So there's been such a bigger gap between what Gen Z want and what millennials we wanted from work. And I think even as millennials, we struggle to manage Gen Z. Because they're just completely different in terms of their wants and needs.
So different.
I was doing some listening to why that might be. And one of the things that really stuck with me is we used to look on a CV, right, of when people jumped around jobs, and it used to be quite a red flag if you'd moved a lot.
Less than 2 years, red flag, wasn't it?
Red flag.
Yeah.
Now you've got a generation who are not afraid to jump from one thing to another. And I was listening to a podcast that said one of the reasons for that is because we are now living in a subscription mentality world.
Yep.
So when we were younger and you had your CDs, your DVDs, if someone borrowed one of my CDs and didn't give it me back, I'd be fuming because I'd saved up for that. I coveted it. I cared a lot about my physical thing that I'd put my time and effort and money into getting. Whereas now, if something's not serving us, we switch subscription. And it's that easy. It's not like you don't have that loyalty to stuff as what we always have. And as soon as I heard that, I thought, that's what's happening with work. They're not loyal. It's not loyalty. It's the fact that it's not serving them, so they find something that is.
Yeah. There's a great book by Jessica Swan, and she talks a lot about the subscription model approach to how you manage your workforce, that your workers are essentially subscribing to your workplace, and they will continue subscribing for the amount of time where they feel like they're getting something in return for their subscription. So good work, purpose, reward, recognition, training, development. The moment that they feel that that's not being delivered, they're going to unsubscribe and they're going to subscribe somewhere else. And in a basic form, that's a really great way to look at it. And you're so right. We're not necessarily talking about this generation, or they're coming in, they want different things from work. Yeah, so did we in the workplace. But also, they are a product of what society is making them. I say this to my husband all the time because he talks about our children. We have 3 boys of varying ages. One's almost 18, the youngest is 11. And he talks about their wants and needs and how it's so different to when he was a kid. I was like, because that was a long time ago. But they are a product of our making as well, because we've given them convenience. Every one of my children just know how to use an iPad, did it at a very young age, are used to, if there's nothing in the cupboards, we'll just Uber Eats and get something in. I remember when I was a kid, being taken out to dinner was a massive treat. Now it's just the norm in our family, and not normally because we're also really busy and we've got much busier lifestyles. So they are just a product of what's society is making them. But you're so right. They are really clear on what they want and need, and if they're not getting it, they're switching and they're going somewhere else for it. But then isn't that our job as founders and business owners and people managers to ensure that we are giving them what they need? Because then if we are able to provide that to them, we're going to attract and retain the best people for our workplaces. The businesses who are out there being really deliberate about making their people experience really good and making sure that they are investing in their people, they are attracting and retaining the best people, and therefore their businesses are doing really well. So I just, people need to think about that. If you want a business that's going to do really well, if you want to scale really quickly, you need the skills and the knowledge and these hungry young people to come into the workplace and work for you. But you are going to have to make sure that you are looking after them and delivering on what they want and need.
What is it like? Where can you start? Because I think it is. It's a scary. It feels big, right? It feels like we don't understand it it feels difficult to try and even know where to begin.
Yes.
Where do you start?
I don't think it's that big and scary if you actually stop and think about it. I'm always listening to podcasts, reading books, and looking at, obviously, in my line of work, what people want and need from work. The biggest motivator right now is purpose. The people coming into the workplace, these Gen Zs, they want to feel that what they're doing has a purpose. They want to understand what the role they're playing is in achieving something bigger. And I've talked about this in HR forever, about this golden thread. As a business, you obviously have business goals and things that you want to achieve. You then need to thread those goals down to teams and departments, down to individuals, so everybody understands what they're doing to help achieve that bigger goal. And when they know that, they're more likely to want to obviously contribute to it. But also when you get there, what do they get? What progression do they get? What recognition do they get? What reward do they get? And when they know that and they get there and you give them those things, they're going to be really happy and motivated. And it is a golden thread, because if you thread it all the way through and you do it really well, it will be golden and your business will thrive because of it. So I think it's about understanding, and like you say, if you haven't got time to do the research, talking to people, like a people partner, like HR Star, about, okay, what is it that this generation need and want? So first of all, purpose. They want recognition. They want to feel that they have a progression opportunity, that they're going to be developed and supported. Money's number 5 on the list, but obviously everyone wants to be paid fairly. And so when you understand that, then focus on those things. Make sure that you're being really open and honest with them about what that purpose is, what you're trying to achieve, and the role that they play in it. Make sure if you say, if we get to here, you'll get X, Y, Z, that you're delivering on those things. But just continually have that open conversation and that feedback loop in your workplace to understand, what do you want and need in the workplace? Most of the time, people haven't got some bizarre, massive, obscure things that they're going to turn around and say, I want a Mercedes and this, that, and the other. I mean, there might be a few. But most of the time, people are going to say, I just want to do really good work and feel recognised for my contribution and get paid well and have an opportunity to develop. I don't think that's changed over the years.
That's exactly what we all want, I think. But I think the way that they're going about it is different, isn't it? You're so right. It's not as difficult as it seems. I think that there's so much scaremongering out there about laziness, about them completely changing how companies work, destroying cultures, that I think you're right. It goes back to the basics of people just want to do really good work in places that they're happy and they feel like they're contributing. Yeah. And that all goes back to what you said before. Founders need to be really clear on what their culture is, what their purpose is, and be absolutely obsessed with delivering that for their team and their people, and investing in it as well.
Yeah. Which is why I think, that is a job in itself. And I think founders, if they're trying to do that and be that to everybody, they will also fall down, because you just can't. Not when you are also trying to set the vision, run the business, do the finances, make sure the marketing's up to speed, the clients are happy, etc. But as I keep saying, if you really invest in that and in your people, you will definitely see that ROI.
Amazing. Well, I think that's where we'll leave it. I think that was absolutely amazing. We could talk forever about this, but I think that was the perfect point to leave everyone who's watching with some perfect tips on how to create brilliant teams, retain great talent, and build a culture that delivers on purpose and ROI. So thank you so much for coming.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
You. Wow, I got so much out of that conversation. I really hope you did too. If there is an area or a topic or someone that you want me to have a conversation with that's going to help your business, drop me a DM at Katy Leeson and we will make it happen. Thanks again for joining. I'll see you next time.